I want to create brave spaces. I had this revelation this year that you can't create a safe space because safe is different to everybody. You can create a brave space though. And a brave space would be something where someone can be encouraged to be vulnerable and talk about maybe what's really going on in their life with a group of people they don't know. And sometimes people would say that's easy. I actually think that's quite hard because there's a real judgment that could happen in that room, right? And so yeah, ModelMe, we've kind of gone from one offering very quickly to 4 offerings, which is like a dream come true. And that has come out of me going full time on my business. So yes, we just launched mentoring a couple of months ago. And that's really about journeying with a person one-on-one. Because I do really feel, mentoring has radically changed and impacted my life. I am not the woman I am today without the mentors I have. So I think to your question, one of the key things I would say is who do you have around you?
Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Hope you're looking after yourselves. Welcome to season 7 of the Student Guide. Yes, we are back. We're back with we'll have the round of applause. We're back. We've had we're coming up to maybe 60, maybe 70 episodes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I think the end of this season will be 70 episodes that we've done the Student Guide. So almost 70 different guests speaking to them and learning more about them. You may be wondering who's to my right. You may be wondering who our guest is. We will be getting into that very shortly. But first off, we just want to say this season it's great to be here. 7 seasons of a podcast. It's wild. To have almost 70 episodes as well. So thank you to all of you, wonderful audience. As we always say, if you want to support us, like, comment, subscribe, always appreciated. Make sure you share, click the notification bell so you don't miss any of our episodes. And if you want to support us, check out our Patreon page or our YouTube channel membership. And you can also get merch like the Pick Up the Mic t-shirt that I'm wearing. But yeah, person to my right is our intern, Josh. Josh, people may have seen your videos. They may have heard your voice, but they don't know who you are. So very quickly, if we can have a quick intro from you.
Okay. Okay. Hi, I'm Josh, also known as JJ. I am 19 years old. I am an intern working with Jeffrey. Outside of it, I'm chasing world domination.
Okay.
I love that.
Track and field is my thing. Dance is my thing. Photography is my thing. Anything I put my mind to is my thing. So, yeah, that's me.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And Kevin. We've got an amazing guest speaker with us today, as always. But as I tell you, I do not like to do introductions. I think it's best for us to hear from our guest speakers. So I'm going to hand over to Natasha. Could we know a bit more about you and what you do?
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. This is so cool. Congratulations on...
Thank you.
Wow, that's a lot of episodes. Yeah. My word, that's so cool. So my name's Natasha Minter. Thank you, everybody, so much for tuning in and listening. It's really surreal and funny for me because I'm normally on the side that you're on. So this is also really fun. Oh my gosh, how do I introduce myself? So I'm the founder and creator of ModelMe. Which I'm sure we'll go into. But yeah, ModelMe is a wellbeing platform. My whole mission is to help people model their true, authentic self. I live in West London, but I'm from the north of England. I try really hard to not define myself by my work, but here I am. So I love social time. I think social time is so important. I have had a real revelation of rest in my life. So rest is a rhythm I have in my life. It's a non-negotiable. I love fitness. I love working out. I love the freedom that gives me. And I'm a believer. I love Jesus. He changed my life, radically turned me upside down. And so, that is really, I suppose, the anchor to everything that I do. But I'm just a human though, right? So I don't always get it right for sure.
No, thank you very much. And we will be diving into all of that in just a bit. But we have a new segment. As I always say, we bring new stuff every season. So we are title pending. We are currently going with mic drop moments. But this is essentially, we're going to do a bit of like a question to start with before we go into like the questions so you can learn a bit more about the guest. So we've got 25 questions. Natasha, could you give us a number between 1 to 25 and we will ask you a question just as a way to learn a bit more about you?
I think because it's season 7, let's do 7.
Let's do 7.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. If you could dedicate the next year of your life to one passion project, what would it be and why?
Oh, gosh. You know what? I'm so privileged that I get to sit here and say it would be the thing I'm actually doing. It will be just to further the mission of ModelMe and to just really help people understand who they are. I think that is a desperate, I feel desperate at times about it, and then also extremely excited because I just can see this really, the darkness that we live in this world. And it's so funny because I was kind of thinking, I feel like I need to give them a heads up and be like, I'm probably going to go deep quite quickly. But I feel like your question invited that. So yeah, I think I'm so privileged to sit here and say that, and I just have to really thank God that I now work on my business full time, because that really is not my story. I don't come from any sort of like background that could support me in that way, which I'm sure we can go into. And so yeah, I think definitely that project. Yeah, I suppose my whole thing is about furthering, how can I help people meet Jesus, right? And I think I'm so grateful that I get to do that through my business, and get to speak to people that also have no idea who the Lord is. And I think that is truly where God has called me. I really believe we're, each of us individually, whether we know it or not, are called to be a light in a dark place. And so, yeah, I think that is that. Oh my gosh, I'm kind of like having a revelation. Like, I'm so privileged, that I get to sit here and say that. So, wow. Great question.
Amen to that. Hey.
Wow.
No, thank you very much. Yeah, we were trialing it. Seemed to go really well. So keep an eye on the next one. But yeah, if you ever do want to submit your own mic drop question, please do let us know.
That's cool.
Yeah, we're getting the audience a bit more involved.
We had an actual mic to drop.
But not yet, but we'll work on it. But yeah, I'm going to hand over to Josh for the first official question.
Ooh.
Dun, 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 dun. Okay. Okay, so from what you spoke about in your introduction, you created ModelMe, right? ModelMe is all about embracing your true, authentic self.
Yeah.
Those are your words. What inspired you to create a platform centered around well-being and authenticity? And how do you help others embark on their journey towards self-discovery?
Great question. Big question. So let me try and break it down.
I try my best. Thank you.
I just also love this, by the way. Did you have previous duo?
Yeah,
always?
we sometimes would do duos. Yeah, I don't think we've ever done, or at least I've never done one in person for this podcast, at least. So yeah, this is the first time we've done a duo in person.
Oh, that's so fun! And look, Josh is. I hope you can see Josh on the camera, but Josh is flying over there. We got to try and keep him seated.
We're kindred spirits. We're kindred spirits.
Oh, you're so good. This is so fun. Okay, so the question. So, I think it makes sense to share my story with you, because then it will help understand probably why I got here and how I got here. So I'm from the north of England. I went to uni in Nottingham. Shout out Nottingham Trent. I loved my university. Are you at Nottingham Trent?
I was close to going there.
Oh yeah, Trent's a great uni. I'm from a village. I literally grew up in the middle of nowhere kind of thing, where there's no public transport. If you want to get anywhere, you got to get in a car. I'd leave my house on a bike and go to the park, no questions asked. It was I'm very blessed to grow up where I did. And I come from a single parent household. My mom did such a fantastic, amazing job raising me and my 3 sisters. And I have a cousin that's like a sister. So we're surrounded by women in my family, it feels sometimes. And my sister actually just had her 3rd baby girl last night. Woohoo! So yeah,
auntie.
I know. Being an auntie is the biggest privilege ever. Wow, what a gift to I suppose raise that next generation. I'm so grateful and really thank my sister for how much she trusts me as well with my nieces. So yeah, it's amazing because I grew up in this, this great little village, but I was, very ready to go to uni in Nottingham. I did fashion communication and promotion. And when I graduated, I was kind of I don't want to work in fashion. And then 2 years later, I ended up being scouted to be a model. And I was like, this is strange. So all of a sudden kind of went from knowing the fashion industry from one side, and then all of a sudden I was in front of the camera. And my sister was the model growing up, right? And so she was the one that we always thought would be the model. And it's not to say that she didn't do a lot of amazing things, but, she never lived in London and had a career. And the reality is maybe now it's a little different because Manchester's really got some amazing things Pretty Little Thing and Boohoo make it really accessible for you to live in Manchester and be a model now. That's the reality, whether you love those brands or not. And so, yeah, I moved to London in 2016. I never wanted to live here, ever. I was quite anti-London. I was like, yeah, you don't have to go to London and make a life in fashion. Like, I literally used to say that when I was at uni. I was quite bitter. And I think it probably scared me, you know? Like, Nottingham was a great transition city. And when I came here, basically within 8 months, I was signed in. London was like my main mother agent. So when you're a model, you have a mother agent, and that's kind of like your main one that oversees everything you do, really. Okay. And then I was signed in Milan, New York, and LA. And I was, you know, it was really exciting, but no one really tells you what that means. Like, you just get signed in these cities and you're like, wow, that sounds so great. But like, what does that mean? And so, and I'd been to New York and LA off kind of my own back on a trip. And I had a really good experience and got to like pick the agency because I had more than one agency that wanted me in both cities. And even that was amazing. And I went through a real journey in my first 8 months as a model where I went to this casting by Rankin, who I'm sure you know, the photographer. And I grew up kind of like being inspired by some of the things that he'd done. And I sat in he's got this amazing studio, you know, and I basically sat and I was so nervous. And then when I came out of that casting, I stopped myself in the street and gave myself a pep talk. And, you know, you have to wear heels to a casting, or at least I did all the time back then. It might be more casual now. This is 2016. And I stopped myself in the street. I took my heels off and I was like, Natasha, you will never do that again. You will never silence or like dim yourself down to just like fit into this, you know, quote unquote, fit onto a mold of what you think you should be, because I just wasn't myself. And I know that's why I didn't get the job, because I wasn't who I'm supposed to be. And yeah, so modeling was a really interesting first year. I mean, I was 22, turning 23, and everyone in my life told me you're too old, apart from my agency. And I was like, I'm going to listen to them since they're the one that are going to get me the work. And then, 2017, I decided to go to Milan. My agency was like, let's go to Milan and do a season. I was like, cool, what does that mean? So I went to Milan, packed my bag, quit my job I was a waiter, worked part-time all my life until last year, which is just mad, another story. And I went to Milan, and on my second day, my agency, you know, you go to agency, you walk in your bikini, it's very normal, and they look you up and down, you know, they like measure you again, I think, and I had this long table, kind of like this, but much longer, with like 14 agents sat around it, all talking Italian, all talking about me in Italian and looking at me, but like, I don't understand Italian, right? So, you know someone's talking, but you don't really know what they're saying. And I just knew I disappointed them, and I didn't know why. I went back downstairs, got dressed, came back up, and this woman, this older lady, sat me in the corner. I still remember her name. She sat me in the corner so everyone could hear. But it was like, you know, they were tapping away on their laptops, so they couldn't hear, but they could hear. And she sat me down and she said, Natasha, we just don't know how you've done this to yourself. And I was like, what have I done? I like had no idea. And I just sat there for about 10, 15 minutes feeling totally lost, and having this woman tell me, you know, I don't know how you've done this to yourself. Like, what did you eat over Christmas? And so what I probably should say is, you know, there's a bit of a trigger warning here about body dysmorphia that's coming. But, you know, there's a lot of my story that I won't share, and that's very intentional. But this is part that I do share. You know, what did you eat over Christmas? You know, what have you done to yourself? And you're disgusting. And repeatedly told me I was disgusting. And I was like, I don't know what I've done. And I still sat there like bewildered. As to what I had done. And so I just kind of sat there, and I'm not a quitter, right? And so my attitude was like, I'll do whatever it takes to make them happy and to help them. And, you know, help them. And so I left that day, and I just did the worst things to my body for 6 weeks. I really did everything it took to try and please them. And I knew pretty quickly, by week 2, I knew that it was never going to be enough for them, because I dropped a lot of weight very quickly in the first week because of things that I was doing. I did actually have a trainer that I was working through, but like, you know, he warned me and said, it's quite extreme what we're going to do. You know, I used to be vegan. He said to me, I'm not working with you if you're vegan. And so he was like, you've got to get some like animal protein in you. And I still didn't jump back to like having chicken. I was like, I'll have eggs. You know what I mean? I was so particular. And yeah, I had this insane 6-week period where I really put my body through it. and mentally just like lived a double life, you know. Back home in England, no one had any idea what was going on with me. And I literally online was like, and this was 2016, right? So yes, we had social media. Sorry, this was 2017. We did have social media, but it was very different to the world we live in today. You know, we share quite openly now, and it's more of a WhatsApp conversation sometimes, I find Instagram is, whereas back then it was not that. And so I remember one day I woke up and I didn't, you know, I wasn't a Christian yet. So, but I remember one day waking up being like, Tash, you're so deeply unhappy. Like, what are you doing? And I woke up that day, I booked my flight home. I didn't tell anybody. And then I got on my flight back and I sat down with my London agent and they said to me, she touched my arm and she said, Natasha, please don't lose any more weight. And I was like, what? Because I'd gone from being too big, too disgusting, you know, to all of a sudden being potentially too thin for my London clients. And she was like, you'll lose all your London clients if you lose any more weight. And I was like, what does that mean? And so it's crazy because I look back and how that conversation really radically changed my life. And in many ways, it took me, I would say, about 6 months to start talking about it and telling people what had really happened in Milan and why I wasn't there, because I was so full of shame. You know, I really carried this like burden of shame that like I had really done the worst thing in the world to these people. And, you know, it's crazy because then I started my business actually March 2018. And the reason I started ModelMe was actually because of what happened to me as a model. But the crazy story is that 4 days before I went to Milan, I had the idea for ModelMe. Okay. So I had this idea and then I lived with it for a year thinking, I can't tell anybody about what I really want to do with this business because I'll be rejected. And I already felt rejected. And so it did take me 2.5 years, I would say. I actually quit modeling because I realized mentally I wasn't well. And so 2019 in July, I quit modeling because I realized it's not worth my mental health anymore. Like I was really suffering still. And I would, you know, have these bouts of periods where, especially Fashion Week, when I would like go and do, you know, catwalk and stuff. And I was so blessed to walk a catwalk because it's not something that every model gets to do. But I would lie. And, you know, Fashion Week would be this dirty secret that I would keep to myself where I wouldn't be eating and I would pretend that I was. And, you know, when you live a life alone so often, like many of us do in London, you can get away with that kind of stuff. And that's what's really dangerous. So yeah, I just think that's my story, right? That's why I do what I do. That's why I'm so passionate about helping people know who they are. Because what happened to me is what the woman actually said to me is horrific, right? Calling someone disgusting is horrific on every account. But the problem isn't what she said to me. The problem is I believed it and I changed the course of my life because of what she said to me. And I allowed her opinion of me to become my identity. And that's the problem, right? And that is actually where we live today, that we are allowing the opinions of people we don't know or like know a little bit, define who we are. And I think it's so destructive. And if I look back, you know, 7 years ago to the things that happened to me then, that's still happening today. And yet what's happening today is we're more accepting of it. And it's so dangerous because before you know it, you live your life off the back of what someone else said or thinks about you. And that's why I think for me, ModelMe is this thing that we're desperate for a solution for our mental health. You know, I'm sure you know the stats. I mean, this year they said, I think it's Fourth with Life, a statistic that says 1 in 7 people struggle severely with their mental health. It's either bad or the worst it's ever been. That's 1 in 7, right? That's so, if you look at the tube and think how many people are on that tube and count how many 1 in 7 there are, like, and a lot of these people aren't talking about it. And so I think for me, like, I'm very, very grateful that I was able, and, you know, we can go into all the things that kind of, I suppose, helped me, but, you know, I'm very grateful that I really do believe it was God that opened that voice and that was like, what are you doing? You know, like, you're so deeply unhappy, this isn't you. Because even before I met Jesus, I was still like quite an upbeat, happy, outgoing, you know, person. I loved encouraging people. That's always been my personality. But yeah, that, I think he just came knocking. And that actually was the year that I met Jesus. So August that year. So yeah, anyway, I'll pause.
Oh, happy anniversary. Wait, it's August now. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah, thank you. Sorry, didn't even clock.
But yeah, no, thank you for that. I think, to link to your fact, we have Mic Check. So for any new members of our audience, Mic Check is where we say an interesting fact or figure relevant or story relevant to the episode. And we've got a fact from the Mental Health Foundation.
Wow.
So in 2021, around 47% of UK adults said that they felt so stressed at some point that they felt overwhelmed or unable to cope. So it highlights, I guess, like you mentioned just there, like it highlights the importance of platforms like ModelMe and why it's important to have those platforms that prioritize mental well-being and self-care. We shared some of them on the podcast before. But yeah, we definitely, like, as a team, also highlight that, you know, people should like mental health is something that is not all, like, sometimes it's spoken about, but it's not always addressed. And like dealt in a way that's comfortable, that's safe.
That's the problem, right, in today's world. And I even think, you know, we could talk about men's mental health as a great example, right?
100%.
Like, I think that mental health in general, right? I mean, ModelMe has been this thing that I've always wanted to educate and empower. That was my kind of tagline at the beginning, because you couldn't talk about mental health then, you know, and then COVID happened. So I'm talking 2018, 2019, it was educate and empower. And actually we started focusing on creatives, right? Because that was the suffer that I saw firsthand so often. It wasn't just models, it was photographers, it was videographers, it was stylists, it was, you know, agents. And a lot of it was down to communication. And people didn't know how to cope with stress. People don't know still how to communicate in a way that is effective and not confronting and actually can deal with, like, something. You know, I would turn up to set, I'm a size 6.5 in my feet, and I would turn up and have a size 4. And that was down to communication. But then people would get upset with each other and be like, wait, hold on, you know? So I saw that so much. But I think for me, it was always about, there's so much talk and there's nowhere near enough solution. And I think now we are in a place where there is more solution. But the way I explain ModelMe is this, you know, there's like a spectrum, right? So if let's say step 1, step 2 is like you're having quite a bad day and you need something to kind of help you with that bad day, and maybe you need to talk to somebody, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's going out and getting exercise, right? That, like, really small, simple things that actually can really radically change your day. Step 10 is you need serious help. You need therapy, you need counseling, you need mentoring in your life, right? What about step 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9? We don't have any service that provides support to those people. And so what you've got now is a lot of people that don't actually need therapy in therapy, spending a lot of money, dealing with a lot of things that frankly they don't need to deal with. You know, and I call healing like an onion, right? It's like a layers. And so yes, sometimes you do need therapy, you do need counseling. I am all for healing. Like, I'm all here for that. I'm actually all here for therapy. So I'm not saying don't go get therapy. But I'm just saying, like, actually, sometimes there's other things you need in place. You need tools. You need tools to manage your mind better. If you've got a bad temper, you need a tool to help manage that. Because if you've got a bad temper, you can get in a conversation with your, you know, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, or your family, and very quickly, that's it. You know, you've flown from, you know, again, from 0 to 10 very quickly because you don't have the tools to manage your temper. And so I think for me, it's, if we use mental health in men as the example, for the last couple of years, you've had a media push on men should speak out more. You know, why aren't men speaking? Men should speak out. Men should be vulnerable. The reality is we don't have the infrastructure. I mean, and I'm talking Western world, London, right? Like, we aren't built like that yet. I wish that we were, but the reality is we are not. And so what's happening is you've got men, and I've heard this story so often, you've got men that will open up to women, open up to other men, and they're not ready. People aren't ready to hear those kind of things because men weren't raised in the same way that women were. You know, I'm 31 now. Like, I was raised, it's okay to cry. It's okay to let your emotions out. You know, oh, what's going on with you today? Boys my age, maybe younger, Joshua, you can chime in and tell us. Sorry, I called you Joshua. You know, like, maybe men that grew up that are my age, they were told boys do not cry. Like, that's not how you deal with your emotions. And so I think we've got to be careful that we're not setting men up for failure in those areas. And, you know, there's some amazing initiatives out there right now that are really supporting men with talking. I mean, there's a great guy I follow called Ray Sefer. I think his name's Ray Sefer, actually. Sorry, Ray. He's a friend from years and years ago. And so he's got this incredible platform, and I watch him and I think, wow, like, men must be so inspired, and I'm so grateful that there's people like that. But the reality is it's going to take time, you know, and we are desperate for a solution for mental health, but it is going to take time and it's a process. So yeah.
No, I completely agree. Yeah, which kind of actually links to our next question. So with your platform, you offer workshops, you do fitness events, you do mentoring. So we would like to know, what do you believe are the key elements for maintaining a strong sense of well-being, both personally and professionally, particularly in today's fast-paced world?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think first of all, it's got to start with you, right? It's got to start with you. You've first got to like sit and think. For me, my whole thing is in order for you to prosper professionally, you need to actually know who you are personally, right? And I think my whole thing is like, what tools can I equip and help people with so that they can prosper in both areas? But the reality is you can't prosper in one without prospering in the other, right? Because it's just not going to feel, it's not synonymous, right? And so I think sometimes we love to segment and we love to like put stuff in a box and be like, well, my career is really successful. You see this happen, actually, I'm so anti-feminist, it's hilarious. Like people would be like, really, you? And I'm like, yes, me. Because the argument around this whole feminism thing, what you've got happening is women setting aside their whole personal goals in life to grow in their career. Right? And we're in this really quite destructive place because family should be the bedrock of society. But because of all the things happening, that's slowly dwindling, right? You've got women having kids much later. And I've got no problem with like, you know, the idea of women freezing their eggs so they can grow their career. Like I'm not really coming against that. It's more like, are we actually aware of what we're saying yes to, you know? And I think it's so alarming for me. I'm kind of sitting here even questioning myself. I've been going, how am I indoctrinated by this world? You know, like how is the feminism language, the culture that I'm around and living in and grown up in, how is that indoctrinating my mind? And I had this really in-depth conversation with my boyfriend last week about it actually. And it was challenging because he was, you know, pulled it back to me and was like, what do you think God made women for? And I was like, you know, and it's so there's so much that I can say on that. But I think ModelMe, when we talk about like actually what we do to help people, it's really about helping provide you with the tools you need in order to be equipped in life. And so we do very practical workshops. We have got things like how to have hard conversations, you know, boundaries. It also could be vision, because I'm a strong believer, and there's a great scripture that says without vision, people perish. Another version says people cast off restraint. I don't want to be cast off restraint. Like, and I really do. I see it in my own life, you know, and I see it in other people's life when they have a vision, when they have a call, they know what their calling is upon their life. There is no stopping them, you know. I mean, we could both, all three of us could like name people that we're inspired by that could do that, you know. Even I think if you think about Noah Lyles, right, since you're the sprinter, like Noah has a clear vision, you know, and you know, whether you like or you don't like that guy, I think one thing you can't, you know, I suppose, what's the word I'm looking for? You can't, he clearly has a vision. He clearly has a goal in his life. And I love the audacity, you know, that he would like run and jump and scream and shout. Like, I'm like, you know what, fair play. If that's what gets you in mode, fair play. And I think we're lacking a little bit of that. I don't mind his, you know, craziness, because I think people are so, you know, we're like, oh, let's just people please. You know, let's just like, let's silence myself. Goes back to what I said before. Let's just, you know, dumb myself down so I can please everybody else, and everybody else is comfortable. And, you know, it's amazing this week I've gone so off track, but I'll finish this point and then I'll talk about ModelMe. But like this week I've seen two men, you know, one was an older, middle-aged, let's say white guy who was like singing at the top of his lungs with his headphones in Liverpool Street. Like, and I'm pretty sure he was singing worship music. And I was like, yes, come on. And then yesterday, I walked past this young, I think he was Indian. He had this amazing grin on his face and he was singing his heart out down the road. And me and my friend walked past and we were like, why are we not like that, you know? And it was so incredible. I can't believe I've seen that twice in 1 week, you know? And it's just gone, wow, the way that people would just want to sing and shout. And I think we are living in a world where we're so careful. We're like, oh my gosh, like I won't be accepted if I don't do X, Y, Z. And that's my whole thing with ModelMe is I want to create brave spaces. You know, for 6 years, we've created brave spaces. I had this revelation this year that you can't create a safe space because safe is different to everybody. You can create a brave space though. And a brave space would be something where someone can be encouraged to be vulnerable and talk about maybe what's really going on in their life with a group of people they don't know. And sometimes people would say that's easy. I actually think that's quite hard because there's a real judgment that could happen in that room, right? 100%. And so yeah, ModelMe, we've kind of gone from one offering very quickly to 4 offerings, which is like a dream come true. And that has come out of me going full time on my business. So yes, we just launched mentoring a couple of months ago. And that's really about journeying with a person one-on-one. Because I do really feel, mentoring has radically changed and impacted my life. I am not the woman I am today without the mentors I have. So I think, to your question, one of the key things I would say is, who do you have around you? Like, who is it that you're listening to? Who has your ear? The Bible talks about how we have eye gates and ear gates. And I think that we have to be so extremely conscious in the world that we live in on what we are consuming. Because whatever you are consuming, it affects your thought patterns, which then affects what you say. It affects how you speak to people. It affects how you think about people, because it gives you a blueprint for how to live your life, right? And so I think for me, the first thing I always say is check your circle. Who do you have around you? Who's pouring into you? And also, who are you pouring into? You don't always want to be somebody that's being, poured into, because you actually should help others as well, right? So yeah, definitely who you've got around you. I also recommend all the time mentoring. I think you've got to be, and I think you're so, one of the reasons, we haven't even said how we met. So let's tell people how we met. Like,
I'm interested about this one.
Yeah, so Jeffrey spoke at this UAL event that I helped event manage. And that was so great. Do you want to say anything about that?
Mental health is really important to us at Pick Up the Mic, and we love to share resources that can support your mental health. And that's why we are so glad to have today's sponsor. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service, and it's 100% online. With BetterHelp, you can tap into a network of over 30,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of issues. To get you started, you just answer a few questions about your needs and preferences in therapy. That way, BetterHelp can match you with the right therapist from their network. Then you can talk to your therapist however you feel comfortable, whether it's via text, chat, phone, or video call. You can message your therapist at any time and schedule live appointments when it's convenient for you. If your therapist isn't right for any reason, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional charge. With BetterHelp, you get the same professionalism and quality you expect from in-office therapy, but with a therapist who is custom-picked for you, more scheduling flexibility, and at an affordable price. Get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/pickupthemic. I've also linked them down below in the description. Yeah, so how we met was someone from this, I think you've met her, Angelica. Yeah.
Maybe.
What a
DJ,
gal.
The DJ at the party, Roundhouse Works party,
Cutting shapes.
So cool.
Yeah, she does really incredible work, and we met in the space because she actually wanted to know more about the Black Business Residency, so my part-time job. And then she just mentioned that at UAL they were doing this thing called the Founders Club. They were looking for a speaker. I said I'd love to do it. I was confirmed. And then, basically just went to the space. That's where I met Natasha. She was hosting it. And then, she's, I guess, similar to today, but roles reversed. You asked me questions. And I was just sharing my story and my experience.
But you did like a keynote thing, right? You don't need anyone to ask you questions. You were so good. It was so impactful that night. I just remember the engagement that people had and that were listening. And it's hard to engage a room of 50 people, especially please, don't come for me, anyone, but especially Gen Z, this generation, and it's not their fault. It's just how they were raised. There's so much noise, and you did such a fantastic job. Joshua's nodding and laughing.
I'm nodding because I'm part of this.
He's like, I know. And don't get me wrong, Gen Y, we're guilty too. You know what I mean? We're distracted all the time as well. I have timers for how long I sit on social media, and I work through my social media, but it's just a way to kind of put a boundary,
Yeah.
Actually, that could take me to my next point. I think one of the things that if I think about, I know you were talking about, how can we then first prosper personally and professionally, what can we do to look after ourselves? I think for me, my whole thing is about, you got to know who you are, right? And so that's why with ModelMe, it's how do I help people with the tools they need to know who they are? So our 4 things we have are mentoring, events. And events are really important to connect in real life. We do online events, but there's nothing that can replace in the room. I've always been quite hot on that. And then we've actually just launched an on-demand platform.
Nice.
So that's basically where you can rent or buy ModelMe workshops. So it's super cheap, £3.50 to rent, £5 to buy. You get a worksheet attached. So the same worksheet that we did for that event in the room.
Okay.
And it's been a dream to get that live, to be honest, and a real challenge. I've felt the resistance, but so cool to get it live because to know that people have access, you don't have to be in London and you don't even have to be available. You can sit at home and watch this workshop over and over again if you've bought it, right? With a worksheet. And like, I really encourage people to like marinate on it, you know, like you might need to watch the workshop and then pause, sleep on it and go back because they are deep. Like my workshops, we aren't surface level. I'm quite frankly fed up of surface level content and surface level stuff. Like I am very vigilant with what I let into my eye gate, my ear gate, like I said before. Because it's so noisy, right? And I think also we've just got to be really conscious of what we're doing and how we spend our day, because it isn't necessarily about the grand things. It's about the little things.
100%.
You know, like how do you do the daily small things, right? How do you say hello to people on reception? You know, how do you greet your person that's going to make your coffee? And I think those small things, I really believe that's what God looks at, you know? I think he looks at the heart, but he also looks at how we do all the little things. The big things matter, but you won't get to the big thing if you don't pass the small things, right? So, and the other thing we're launching in September is a course, which is also super exciting. So it's an identity course. It's 4 weeks long. It will be 4 live sessions, like on Zoom for 4 weeks, but we'll also have group mentoring. There'll be different workshops, different homework set throughout the month. And that really is, I want this to be a foundational identity course to really help people understand who they are. So our 4 weeks are split into values and vision, rest and burnout, friendship and belonging, and self and body image. And so, I mean, I try to think about, you know, what are the key core things that I really believe if you get to do a course on that, it's going to set you up. And the beautiful thing is we're going to keep it on demand for anyone that does the course. And so they'll be able to watch it back and go deeper on the session. Because, you know, you and me could sit and have a conversation now, but you might actually be struggling more with rest and not putting that in your life. And I think that's one of the most foundational things that changed my life. I kept burning out through COVID, right? And I was like, why am I burning out? The reality is I was so excited to be full-time in my business for the first time. And I was like, yeah, working all the time. And obviously I was very lonely. And so work really filled that gap. And it was like, let me just fill this weird hole that I've got and just carry on working all the time. And so I think a foundational part to knowing who you are is stillness. It's rest. You know, I call it a Sabbath because obviously that's been my revelation through what the Bible teaches. But truly, it's a day off. It's a real, for me, what gives me rest is not having a time restraint. We go through our weeks in London being constantly like, where have I got to be at this time? What am I doing? And this moment, constantly checking our time. And for me on a Saturday, it's no time restraints, you know, that's a full rest for me. So yeah, I mean, there's so many things, but I would say if I was going to give one takeaway for someone to start understanding perhaps, you know, who they are is, okay, I'll give 2 because I've spoke about 2 mostly. One is, do you have rest in your life? You know, what are you consumed by, right? Like, do you allow yourself to rest? Because the reason why a lot of people don't rest is because we're so identified by our work. And the moment we stop working, we're like, oh gosh, you know what I mean? And we kind of like, we take a minute. And the other thing was, you know, who you influenced by, like, who's your circle? And I think, you know, we can go down a whole rabbit hole of also, you know, the content you consume, but I'll pause.
No, that's all right. Thank you very much. I'm going to hand over Josh to the next question because it's very relevant to this
question number 3.
Okay.
In your experience working with students and young professionals, what are the biggest challenges they face in embracing their authenticity, and how does ModelMe help them overcome these obstacles?
Wow, your questions are so meaty. I love them. So the first bit you said is, what is the biggest challenge? Oh gosh, you know, my heart really aches, I think, for the younger generation at the moment. I'm really excited by some of the things that younger people are doing, and my heart really aches because there's some real I first of all, like, I know I started to say this before, but I feel like my key point in this is probably like an awareness, being self-aware of what you're listening to. It literally, it's amazing because this follows on literally from the point I was going to say about content. What are you reading? What are you listening to? What are the podcasts you listen or watch? What are the TV shows that you fill your mind with? What is the music? What are the lyrics that you are letting into your mind? I gave up listening to, well, I'm going to call it worldly music. I gave up listening basically to any music but worship music, probably about, I don't know how long, but it's been a couple of years, I think. And that is because of the lyrics. It's not because of the beat. Because now I found this amazing Afrobeats Christian playlist that I love so much.
Share it with me.
Girl, you're not a girl. Boy. Sorry. And there's a girl called Anatoria who I don't know if you've heard.
I know. Yeah, I do.
She's amazing. And I like listen to her all the time now. She's fantastic. And it's like, you know, there's a safety in playing music from an Afrobeats Christian playlist. The beat is incredible. Some of these artists are amazing, but I know that the lyrics are safe. And it's like, I'm not going to slate anybody on here, but there was a song that recently came out and the lyrics, and the song is a beat, like it is a good song. It will do very well. It will win awards. It's fantastic. You know, it's not a Christian artist. But the lyrics, oh my word, they are so sexual. And I'm thinking about the 13-year-old girls and boys that are going to listen to this music. And I'm like, my heart, because we're not, you know, people are so irresponsible. They're so irresponsible today. They're just making music for their own satisfaction, you know, and because it sounds cool and sexy to them. And it's like, you are actually responsible. You have got to be responsible for the amount of young ears listening to your music. And then it's hard because at the same time, you know, people are going to listen to this and be like, yo, why can't they just make the music that they want and parents be responsible? Because we don't live in that world anymore. We're consumed. You can't even turn the TV on. Like, it's crazy because obviously, like I said, I've got nieces, right? You actually have to watch kids' movies before you let your kids watch them. That's where we are now because of the destructive narratives that they've poured into these movies, the way they sneak it in, you know, and it's very subtle. So you've got to be very, you know, we all need a spirit of discernment. And, you know, a spirit of discernment is really where you pray and you ask God to help guide you what's right and what's wrong. And also just like being aware of the things happening around us. And so like, I don't want to use, you know, Christian language that people don't know. I actually want to share people and welcome them into knowing God because, mate, he's the access. Like, I just hit the mic. Sorry, Mike. He is the access. Like, God gives me literally supernatural ability, the Holy Spirit, to go left or to go right, to avoid conflict, to, you know, escape like where dangerous things are going to happen. He gives me access to things that no one in this world could give. And it's crazy because if I actually could, you know, I could sit here and list the things that God has saved me and protected me from. And I think the younger generation today, how could I not introduce them to the thing that I got introduced to when I was 25, 26, you know? Wow, the freedom that we can invite people to having, right? And to not be destructive. Like, I lived a really broken life. Like, I sit here now radically changed, but I lived a really broken life before, you know? And I used to, you know, go to men for self-worth, you know, and comfort. And like, I'm not saying that being in a healthy romantic relationship can't help you and you know, help you grow. Of course it can, if you're with the right person. And a lot of people are with the wrong person today because they're lonely, you know, and loneliness will drive you to things like that. It will drive you to actually a horrible man. It will drive you to be with someone and to just, you know, be like, okay, sure, fine, I'm lonely. I just want to be with him. Right. And so I think the younger generation, if there's one thing that I could say, it would be to get really self-aware and very simply, you know, stop the podcast right now, press pause and write down who are the top 5 artists I listen to. And then you probably aren't even aware of the lyrics. Go and Google, what are the lyrics? And ask yourself, is that the kind of woman I want to be? You know, I'll talk to the women because I'm a woman. Like, is that the kind of woman I want to be? I don't listen to Drake anymore. Have you listened to the lyrics that Drake has about women? Why do I, as a young woman, need to be infiltrating my mind with those kind of lyrics? And I said I wasn't going to throw shade on anyone. I think Drake's a fantastic, talented music artist. But this is about a personal relationship that I have with myself, with God, because of the life that I want to live. You know, and if I think about the kind of woman I want to be a successful businesswoman. I want to be an incredible mom. I want to be an amazing wife. I am not going to get there if I listen to lyrics like Drake's. That is the reality. And it's not just Drake. There are women writing horrible lyrics too, right? So, it's definitely not just men. Let me make that really clear. Women are as responsible too. And I think, just if we could be self-aware, like, is that like I stopped watching the Kardashian show, right? And I actually love the Kardashian show. I think it's great. I think it's so much fun, and it's like, oh, cool. Like I got nothing wrong with actually watching. I've got nothing wrong with people watching it, but I had to ask myself this question as a woman that has had body dysmorphia, that has had to come through and be healed and, delivered from all these thoughts and things that people said to me and that I said to myself. Is it healthy and good for me if I watch a TV show like that? And right now the answer is no. That doesn't mean it's a no forever, but right now it means no. And so my encouragement would be, I don't want to say anything I've said to just scare or put people off, and it's really not from a place of judgment. It's just what's helped me. If I was more self-aware when I was younger, I could have saved myself from so much trauma, And I think that's my thing, is that we say yes to things that we don't even realize we're saying yes to. And it's actually not our fault a lot of the time. It's because of it's like if you imagine your mind like a garden, right? You've got certain trees planted in your garden, and it's because of things you've watched, that you've listened to. It's because people have spoken to your life. And there's a self-awareness that we're lacking and missing because this thing, our mobile phones completely, sorry, I dropped my pen. This thing, our mobile phones completely numbs us and distracts us. Oh, we've got someone doing a performance outside. Well done, darling. We've got this phone that distracts us. It numbs us. It really does. And so for me, I'm not saying bin the phone. I'm saying be self-aware.
100%.
Yeah. What do you say about? I know it's not my time yet to ask you a question.
No, that's all right.
I would love to hear what you think about that, because I know you care so much about young people, and that was so apparent when you did. I mean, look, you have an intern with you. That says so much.
I'm gonna jump into
Yeah, please. I would love to hear what you guys think about this.
I think for me, definitely, like you said, like even I was speaking to a friend about it. Was it this week? Yeah, I think it was on Monday. We were talking about like some stuff, and I agree that there is. Like what you have to be about, like, be aware of what you consume and how that affects where you want to go.
Yeah.
Because even like business owners say it the same thing. Like it's and I think there's this Christian couple called Haley and Sterling.
I love them. I did their Passion to Profit course this year.
Oh, incredible. Yeah.
They're amazing.
But I've always recommended, like, if people want to listen to their podcast, please do. It's pretty great.
Yeah. Shout out Haley and Sterling, man.
But I met them at an event. Was it last year in February, and like they were talking so they were specifically talking about dating, but then in their podcast they talk about like their journey, how they went to making like 6 figures and all of this, and the biggest thing they said was like, if you like to be like to get 6 figures is ultimately a bit like, it's something that's to the average person is not like in their mindset. It's like, this is like an incredible dream, but to get there you have to sort of like dream wild and dream big.
Love that.
So they were saying like, if you're consuming content that doesn't push you to like dream big or dream like wild, then you're never going to be able to accomplish that, because you'll just be hindered by what you're consuming, what you're reading, what you're seeing. So like they were saying, like, if you do want to like go big, then look at like, I don't know, like you said, like mentoring, getting mentors who are either in the industry you want to get into or at the positions you want to get to. If you want to research, I don't know, like you want to start your own like YouTube channel, like look at content creators talking about how to get onto YouTube and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because they said you're never going to grow and build up your business or your idea if you're just like consuming stuff that isn't pushing you to do that. So yeah, that would be my...
That's a word, It's so good. Yeah. I think we have to be so, you can talk about parenting as well, right? And the impact that me having a single mom had on me, 100%. And it's like, I just think there's so much more that we're listening to, right? So we do have to be more vigilant. Go on, Joshua. The one that's from the Gen Z generation.
Okay.
Tell us.
Okay, here we go. Okay.
You're Gen Z too, right?
Yeah, basically.
It's amazing. I love talking to like, I know, and I feel very young, People say when you get older, you still feel like a kid. I'm starting to understand that. Like I'm 31, feeling like I'm 21, very aware I'm not though, because of, I suppose where we're at today, right? Joshua, tell us, what do you think?
So I think it's actually kind of subjective to the actual individual. And when it comes to Gen Z, because I am Gen Z, obviously, and I know that my journey was very different to the people that were around me. So like, where I'm from South London. South London, you know how South London was back in the day.
Right.
Bad stuff used to happen right outside my house. That's why my mom didn't let me go out. I think like being self-aware kind of comes, it comes at a really weird time sometimes. Because it can happen at different stages in your life.
Yeah.
And I know everyone says like, I wish it happened when I was younger, but sometimes things have to happen
100%.
for you to be self-aware.
Yeah.
For example, like me, unfortunately, and especially with content as now, it kind of forces people like us to grow up way too quickly.
Yes.
Way too quickly. So like,
let children be children,
honestly,
man.
like even now, it's like I always speak to, like I just came back from teaching from Poland actually.
Wow.
I spoke with the kids over there because these kids are like a couple years younger than me. Some of them are a couple months younger than me. But they were speaking to me, it's like, oh, you're like 25. Are you 25? It's like, you're so mature. Yeah. And it kind of just made me think, as like through all the things that have been pushed, not just on social media, but like even in schools.
Yeah. Yes. Come on.
It's like I had to grow up at 14.
Wow.
Like even like you see me, I'm very bubbly like you, but like I had to grow up. So when you're talking about rest and stress, until last year, I didn't really recall a time where I was able to kind of Yeah, because last year I was doing 4 A-levels, I was doing track, and then I was working to pay for track, and then I was tracking an hour backwards, 2 and 4. So it was kind of...
And it's seasonal, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it is like that.
Yeah.
Last year I had a bit of a mad year where I worked 2 jobs, grew my business. There's seasons, right? Seasons like that. So it's just, I think sometimes it's about understanding that there's an end in mind, right? For that season in particular.
But that's the thing with Gen Z, they think that, well, sometimes you think when you're in it forever. So when you
we
get
all feel
out
like
of
that, mate.
Exactly. When you get out of that, it's kind of, oh, you were stressing about that for that long, knowing that it was going to be done. So when I speak to people now as well, it's like you're in a bad situation, but this situation is temporary.
Yeah.
Nothing in life is permanent.
100.
Unfortunately, everything is always changing. And also kind of like, I guess just in general, like teaching yourself that it's okay to not go with everybody else. Like I can tell for like, when you're talking about music and that stuff now, when I was younger, it was a lot of mainstream stuff. A lot of mainstream stuff is pushed because it's mainstream. Everyone wants to make money off it.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with looking to those other outlets. And there are those groups of youth that do really good things for each other, but because it's not mainstream and it's not pushed, you can never find them.
Yeah.
In most cases, you can't find them. Like it wasn't me going through my little journey the last 2 years, I was able to find those other groups.
We can definitely share playlists.
Yes, 100%. Like even now, it's not like obviously I'm working on the music type of thing. It's been a slow cut because music is a big thing for me because I'm a dancer.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of different people who speak a lot of different truths, and they don't go into those, I guess, graphic or uncomfortable things that make us grow up at such a young age, I think.
Yeah.
But just like in general.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to take it down this route too much, but what I will say is there are powers at play in the music industry and the film industry, many industries, but there are powers at play. There's a reason why certain music is at the top, because they want to try and indoctrinate and infiltrate thoughts and ideas into your mind. And that's really quite dark, and maybe some people are quite scared by that. Don't be scared, because the Lord has already won the battle, right? But it's important to have an awareness. Like there's a scripture in Ephesians 1:18 that talks about open the eyes of my heart, Lord. And I pray that so much. That's been probably the biggest prayer I've had all year this year. And it's like, open the eyes of my heart, God. Allow me to see what you're truly doing in this place, and allow me to also see where I need to go, and where I need to, like, one big scripture that's really impacted my life over the last 3 years is Matthew 7:7. Ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be open to you. And it's like, actually, Lord, open the eyes of my heart and my mind to see, because our heart and mind are connected, right? Open the eyes of my heart to see what door I should be knocking on. And I think it's, if I think about the music industry, there are certain things they want to numb us to, make normal. And even if you think about how, like, adverts, I was talking about this last night, how demonic and dark the adverts are now. Like kids should not be allowed to, like, if you've got Coronation Street on, right, and you've got the adverts and they're like, I don't want my 8-year-old kid watching that. Like, why are we allowing that to happen? And it's, again, the powers at play. Right? But the reality is we need someone in government that's going, actually, do you know what? That's an after 10 o'clock advert. Right? Because, but the truth is...
Don't get me started on the government. Hey. All right.
Also, just got to say, before we do the next question, shout out to your mum, you know, for giving you such a... I agree so much with what you said. It is so... You know, we can't generalize. As much as I'd love to sit and be like, all 31-year-olds like myself, you can't generalize because, you know, how you grew up, where you grew up, the parents or that you did or didn't have, right? I know there's a lot of healing and a walk I've had to go through because I didn't grow up with my dad.
Same.
Right?
Same here. It was just me and my mum. My mum and my 3 siblings. So we all
Wow, 3 siblings.
But then
Mad.
in total, I have 7.
Right.
So it was kind of like a weird...
Yeah, I have an extra, I think, 6, which is mad. Half.
Jeez Louise.
Yeah, it's mad, right? Yeah, it's mad. So I just, you know, it's incredible. I agree so much with what you said. I think context is so important always. And at the same time, I think there are some things that anyone from any walk of background can sit and go, what am I listening to? I think anyone can ask themselves that question. And sometimes it could be because your parents listen to it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's just, I suppose, an awareness of that too, of like I love Barbie. I love Barbie, you know, like there are some questions I've got about it now, but I still love it. My boyfriend took me to the exhibition last week and I was like, oh, like, it's beautiful, by the way. Highly recommend. Go check it out. And yeah, like, but at the same time, there are questions around that, right? That I have around body image and all that kind of stuff. And that it's okay to ask that question and also be very real that impacted my life growing up and I lived for it, you know? So both things can be true at the same time.
100%. We've gone to the final question before we go to passing the mic, where you'll get to ask, ask a question.
Make it juicy, please.
But the last question is, as someone who's very clearly passionate about identity, self-awareness, what advice would you give to someone struggling to balance their personal and professional life while staying true to themselves?
Oh gosh, such a good question. I think I've said that for everyone. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right.
Not every question's a good question. I think that, yeah, I think so much of what we have said today, I think is probably a really good place to start is first just asking yourself, like, you know, you could even start with, when's the last time I had a day off? Right? I think we are so often, I heard someone say this once, like, you know, you're not a rat, why are you running the rat race? And I was like, ugh, that's so gross. Because the image of rats, we've had mice in my house, do you know what I mean? Like, it's gross, it freaks me out. Yeah. And then I tried to have the image of Ratatouille and it to replace her, make it friendly. But yeah, the reality is that we were not made, you know, and it goes back again to what the Bible says about rest, right? Like, God rested on the 7th day and he rested because it was good. He didn't rest because he was burnt out and he was stressed and he was desperate for a rest. He rested because it was time to rest. And it was good. What he had done was good, you know, creating humans in his own image. That was very good, right? And so I think we, you know, it's amazing when we actually can look. For me, I really try and look at the Bible and I go, okay, what does the Bible say about this? And we do need to rest. We aren't supposed to work every day of our lives. And at the same time, I appreciate some people can be in a season, like you said before, like I was last year. But I do also think that even if you can't, I appreciate that having a day off might be really overwhelming because people might have done that ever or for years. So start with like an hour. And then build to 3 hours, then a half day, you know, then a full day. And it can be, I think it's just allowing yourself to be still, I think is massive. And you might be like me, where I struggle to sit still. I'm much better now, but I have had to grow to that place. And so for me, it's going for a walk, not listening to anything. You know, or it might be for me listening to worship music or, you know, to maybe an instrumental. And I think it's about allowing yourself. I think for me, sometimes last year I used to schedule in thinking time in my diary. And it's just like an hour here and there, not even every week, but an hour for me to have thinking time. Because we have so much that happens to us every single day in our personal and professional lives. You know, especially if you're working from home, I think there's a whole nother stress added to that, which I feel like we've discussed at UAL event. I can't remember if we did, but I feel like we did. I'm like, there's a familiarity with that with you. And I think that we have just got to be so careful with ourselves, be gracious with yourself. Like, I think so much of us are carrying around so much trauma that we've not healed from and we don't even really know. Even this very week is quite amazing that I woke up this morning and yesterday I had this scripture running through my mind that talks about, there's mourning in the evening, but joy will come in the morning. And I didn't realize that all day yesterday that was in my mind because I had something really... It's so confusing and conflicting for me to even understand that we've, as a family, kind of tried to walk through the last 3 days. And it's so bizarre. I felt every emotion that I didn't expect to feel. And I've, been just like really bizarrely in this place for the last 3 days. And then my sister gave birth last night, right? And so there's a relief like, oh, wow, she had a water birth at home, and she was healthy and fine. She had a really great team looking after her. And it's incredible because, I wake up this morning and I felt so different. And I thank God for one, the timing of what happened with my sister straight after this news that we had the other day. And it's so interesting because, I had this conversation on the way here with someone where I was saying about how, we can be feeling so many emotions all at the same time. That doesn't make us two different people. That makes you human, right? And even Jesus wept, right? Even Jesus ached. Like there's scripture where you can talk about where like Jesus cried, like he ached, he was human and he was God. And so it's so interesting for me. It's like that, going back to that idea of like rest. Like yesterday, I needed to rest. I had to reschedule a meeting. I actually was due to see one of my friends with all these kids. And I thought, I can't cry in front of all these kids. I'm like on the verge of tears and I don't really want to do that. So I think, it's so important that we allow ourselves to have, it might be thinking time. It could be a day off. It could be that you actually allow yourself to go and be social. Maybe last year I never got to work out and I love working out. So on my day off, I started going to my gym. It was the biggest treat ever. I was like, wow, I get to do my class. And it was so good. And so I think, I just feel like it's got to start with rest because we live in a world where we're so, I could list statistics and I'm sure you could as well about burnout and overwhelm and stress. And I truly believe if we allowed ourselves to slow down, there's a great book actually that I can recommend. It's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. Fantastic book, and he writes a bit like he's writing a blog, so it's very easy to read, and I kind of need that kind of sometimes. He has actually a great podcast as well, so that's a good thing to check in with. But for me, I think you've got to start with rest, because then you start to understand yourself better, and then you can start to say, what do I like to do when I rest? What don't I like to do when I rest? Like I do social media because it draws me in and that's it before, time is gone. Right?
Yeah. So I love how you said that.
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
Yes. I definitely agree. I think even as a creative, I don't have it. Like I have it, but I don't have it in the studio. There's this book that my friend got me. Shout out Samuel. Launched Pick Up the Mic with me, so shout out to him. But he bought me this book last year it's by Rick Rubin and it's called The Creative Act: A Way of Being, and it's all about like being a creative and figuring out like. So you basically like the biggest. I haven't finished it, but the biggest takeaway has been so far is that everyone is basically a creative because he said you are the only one that's had like a lived experience. You're the only one with your own experiences.
Yes.
No one's been through what you've been through.
Yeah.
And whatever you do with that, whether you create art, whether you create a podcast, whether you take photos, whatever, you have a unique perspective to you. So by default, you are an artist.
Yeah.
And he said it's all about figuring out how do you capture this art? How do you take sort of your experiences and use that to sort of like create something that creates emotion.
Wow.
And the biggest thing he says, like from that, like the book so far that I've taken, is he said that sometimes we like put limits on ourselves and we don't even know it. So the biggest thing he said, I guess, this isn't like art. I didn't draw this. Shout out to Connor. He got this for me for my birthday. He basically, so he was saying like, as an artist, you might have like a blank canvas like this, but you're already limiting yourself because you said, like my painting has to be on like a canvas with like it's like a square or a rectangle, and you're already limiting what the piece could be. But he said you could create like a canvas and it could be, I don't know, like a circle. It could be, you could do like a whole like art installation and it's like...
You could be a sculptor.
Exactly.
100%.
So he was saying that never feel like, even I guess like relating it to this, like if you're going to do a podcast, like don't feel like you have to do it based on like what other podcasts are doing, or even like the podcast format has to be in person. Like I've seen people that some people do podcasts on the tube, on trains. I've seen people just like they go to the park, they have their mic. There was one that they actually like go outside. It's like a 2-hour podcast, but they basically like just sit on a table. They put like a microphone. They're just chatting. People are told like if you want to come up and like it's in America because obviously here like I don't know if it would work the same way, but
we're a bit prudish.
But Americans loved it.
It's okay.
But Americans loved it, and they were just literally like you said. They came like people would come on. They'd be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna just like chill." And what's funny is they bring celebrities on it. They're just like, "Oh yeah, like just come sit with us for like 2 hours, and we can have a conversation." So I guess even to just relate it to like your art, like what you create as a creative, like never feel like you have to put yourself in that box and be like, oh, this is how it's been done in the past. This is how I have to follow it if I want it to be successful or impact people or create emotions from it. And
it goes back to the idea of, I suppose, like, why are you doing what you're doing? And it's like creating for the sake of creating, not because you're trying to make money. And there's nothing wrong with making money. I think if we talk about, I love British people. I am British. You know, my grand's Norwegian, but I'm British, right? I grew up here. But we hate talking about money. Oh my gosh. And that's why I love Hayley and Sterling, actually, because they have shifted my thinking around money. Like, you know, sometimes you meet somebody and you're like, whoa, like they have completely changed how I see it. And also like 100%. The Bible, but they have led me through so many things with the Bible, which is great. But it's incredible, isn't it? Because we are so like, imagine if we just created for the sake of creating and there wasn't the pressure of how many people are going to see it, how much money am I going to make, or even, and obviously not everyone has the privilege because of how much it's going to cost. But it's like I was just saying to you when we were off camera, it's like, you know, I've just relaunched our podcast and it was like, I've taught myself how to edit. I'm getting better at sound editing. You know, I've borrowed spaces, borrowed my friends' mics, you know, doing it off my mobile phone. Like there's nothing, I've not let cost stop me because I don't have the money to put into it. But I think sometimes you got to make a decision that I'm just going to go anyway, right? And it
100%.
might not be perfect yet, but I'm going to go. And I look at you 7 series in and I'm like, okay. So it's amazing what you just said. I think we are so creative innately, you know, and we're designed to create, you know, like God gave Adam and Eve the garden to cultivate. God will give you something to cultivate, right? And that's why you got to find out your calling because you have a land, a garden to cultivate and grow. You know, but we can't do it by ourselves, right?
100%.
That was so good.
Honestly, I also think that everyone can create, but I feel like in order to do it well, you need to understand how powerful it is. It is it's a privilege, actually, sometimes. A privilege that we are given, obviously, to be able to create in any aspect.
Yes.
Whether we're doing this as photos or maybe just reading a poem or like a talent show, you know? Being able to create is a big thing.
Yes.
But you need to understand the power of it and how it can change the trajectory of someone's life and even your own.
Yeah.
You know?
Culturally. Sorry, go on, carry on.
So I'm going to give you like a little story actually. So when I was in Poland for the last 2 weeks, I did meet someone over there. She's 17, just like a year and a bit younger than me. And she was scared that people weren't seeing who she really is.
Right.
On the outside, she was seen as not a mean girl, but like, you know how like people have that mean girl look, basically. But she's a poet. And I kind of like, we sat down and I spoke with her and I was like, you are a creative. That is who you are. Because she hadn't heard that word before. And I was like, what is that? And it's like, you're creative.
Wow.
It is a very special thing and something that you should push. And now after that, now she puts her own poems online. She gets a good audience from that as well.
Wow.
So ultimately, yeah, it's kind of just the whole idea of that anyone can create and it's a very powerful thing because it's yours.
Yeah.
You know? Everyone can do the exact same thing, but nothing will ever be the same. Because no one sees anything the same, no one thinks the same. That's what makes it special. And a lot of people dumb that down saying, oh, I can't do that. Even sometimes old gen parents might do that, unfortunately. It's a real thing.
Yeah, and we have to be like, so I love what you said about privilege. We have to be so aware culturally of where we live. And also, you know, I don't know all these big fancy words that people like to use, but like, you know, the fact that we live in London, we live in the UK. there's a narrative, there's a language, there's an acceptance around creating and around exploring that we have here that other countries don't have. You know, and even the privilege of access in terms of like access to things like to mobile phones or to studios. Like London is, you know, so well equipped for a creator that frankly you don't have an excuse. You know what I mean? If you're living in London, like bust your butt and find a contact. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm a connector to the core. You are, I think, very much like that too. I could tell at the moment I met you. It's amazing. It's such a great quality to have. Like sometimes I have to be careful because I meet somebody and immediately I'm listening to them and I'm going, who do I know? Who do I know? Which sometimes you just got to listen. Do you know what I mean? Like someone just wants to talk. Like, okay, who do I know that could help you? Like it's a great quality, but yeah. And so we just have to be very aware of like, I hope that wasn't hard what I just said to everybody, but no. I hope from an encouraging point of view, like, come on, like if you're a videographer and you need to improve your skill, go and find a videographer that you can shadow. You know what I mean? Or if you're you want to get into modeling, go and find a model that you can talk to, you know, or a photographer that you can test with, you know, like I think we're so privileged to live in this city. I know I won't live here forever. And there's been a switch in me recently that's like, do you know what? Let me make the most out of this city. And if you don't ask, you do not get, right?
100%.
You just got to try. Like what we said before, you just got to try. And I think, I love what you said. There's a privilege that we have here where we're so like encouraged to create. We're encouraged to do stuff. And I think at the same time, you know, mentally, we have to make sure that we don't put ourselves under this pressure for it to be perfect. I'm very okay with the fact that certain things I'm doing right now, you know, with my podcast, it's not perfect yet. It's not exactly as I've envisioned or I want it to be. But the point is, I've got to grow. I've got to go, right? Allow myself to grow, allow myself to process and improve. And yeah.
But yeah, no, thank you very much. That was amazing.
You led that.
No, thank you.
Because of what you said, so I'm grateful.
We're now going to hand over to you. So we're going on to passing the mic. So Natasha, please let us know any questions or a question that you would like to ask me and Josh. Yeah.
So great. I feel like we've been having this such good conversation. I actually read the questions on the way here, so I actually was like already thinking like, what is it that I would like to ask? And I think off the back of the conversation that we've had, that has been so... It's fed me so much. So I'm so grateful. And I appreciate how open you both have been with certain things as well. I suppose one question I would love to ask is, what are the things that have, I suppose, led you in your life to feeling like you have permission to be your authentic self?
Do you want to go first or should I?
I'll let you go first.
Okay. I think, to be honest, when I was younger, when I was 4, I had hair. I looked like a giant palm tree, basically. So think this, but just times 10. I always told myself like I want to be an artist. When I was younger. At 4, I like honestly when people learn through like numbers and counting, I learned through colors. I always used to like paint, draw, all that stuff. Also, my brother did used to draw as well.
Wow.
He will always take credit for that, but I'm like whatever.
That sibling rivalry. Nothing like
but
it.
I think growing up, especially, I knew that. I mean, obviously, I know that we're all different and unique, but I knew that I was different, but not. I didn't necessarily know it was in a good way or bad way, but it's like I love these things. These things make me jump. These things make me happy. And then when I reached, I guess, secondary school, I guess it was kind of like, okay, I want to kind of do this, but I don't really know how to do it. But because I know education's a big thing, of course, and everyone likes to push education. But especially one thing that I really hate my school for is that because they saw good grades, they thought you cannot be creative.
Right.
You can't.
It's one or the other. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
It was the same when I was
exactly. So growing up, I did art, I did music, I did dance, I did sport, I did everything. Everything you could do in school, I did, basically. I think I even went to like the French club and watched the film. I don't remember the film. And
did they try and stop you? They were like, no, you're doing too much.
To be honest, they would kind of ask questions, but I'd be like, oh no, I want to do it. Because it's like extracurricular in your free time.
Yeah.
But then once you hit that point where you pick what subjects you want to do, etc., they forced me to do geography. They forced me to do Mandarin.
Because you were smart.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm like, why are you putting me into a box? You know?
Sure.
I was like, I don't like this feeling. I think it was the first time I was kind of like accidentally like forced into like a box, so to say. And I hated it.
Yeah.
I hated it. Obviously, I found love in doing it because I was like, oh, well, I can't really do anything.
You're like, I'm
about
here
it
now.
I'm here now. But especially last year, because I've only been doing photography for a year. And then just with my like what I do with like sport and dance outside, I found dance not too long ago as well. I brought that back. It was kind of like I get chills when I do it, and I feel it makes me happy.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's a big thing. That's a really big thing for me, actually. It is a privilege, of course. Like, I am very privileged. I'm very much aware of that because of where I was born. But I'm like, I'm going to do what makes me happy, you know? Like, I don't need to be... Everyone's like, I want to be a billionaire, I want to be a millionaire. I'm like, bro, that's not realistic. Be for real. You don't need to be a millionaire to be happy.
Right.
Me, personally, I just want to be comfortable.
Yeah.
As long as I'm comfortable and doing what I'm loved, that is a good life for me, you know? So yeah, ever since then, I did kind of have to push for it, like both within family and kind of outside. But once I started, I knew I couldn't stop. And then once I got confirmation from God as well last year, once I got confirmation, I was like, yeah, nothing's stopping me now, low-key.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah. For me, I guess it's kind of similar. So from like my like career path has always changed. So originally I was like very adamant from secondary school to be not secondary school, from primary school to be like, oh, I wanted to be like prime minister. I wanted to be like a politician. I was going to be like a prime minister, first black prime minister, and I was like, this is going to be great.
Oi.
Yeah, but you know, it was basically like I got to secondary school and I was just like, politics is just like a nasty playing field, and it's just a space. It can feel like a space where even if you know something is wrong, you're not always able to do the right thing just because of like the way things are set up. So I was like, no, I'm good. Like politics, I'm good. But yeah, it would basically like turn to, I was like, I just thought, I guess when I was in secondary school, I started to realize like, I guess like you're saying, like my parents were, my parents weren't like a bit different to yours. So I did, like I did when I was in year 7, that was the first time they had like a full-time like drama teacher. My drama teacher, my school also only went up to year 9 because it was like a new school and they were adding it each year. But yeah, they for the first time I ever did a school play, it was Bugsy Malone, and I was like, I did one in my primary school. I was like, okay, cool, I want to do this again. Got a main part, sang a solo.
Love that.
Yeah, I can sing. I'm not going to sing now, but I can sing.
Wow.
So yeah.
Man of many talents.
I'm going to talk you about that later.
But yeah, so literally I did that. And then that was really good. My parents really enjoyed it. My parents came, they had a good time. And then just through like, I guess, my parents seeing like how much I was enjoying it, they were just like, yeah, cool, like do more plays, like do that stuff. When it came to GCSEs, like my parents didn't mind, because I was like, I've always loved history, so I did history. I've always loved like physics and science. So for GCSEs, I did triple science, and then I did Japanese, and then I did drama as well. When it came to A levels, like I tell people my A levels, and they find it like random because I did physics, history, and drama, and I only did those 3, not necessarily because of like a career path, but because those are 3 subjects I was just like, I actually enjoy, and I'm happy to like do
You'll
them.
give your all.
Yeah. So I did those subjects, like figured out the course that I could do thanks to my physics teacher. After that, so like year 13, results day came in. I didn't even know my grades. I found out I got into Brunel. I was like, this is great. And then, yeah, it was just like, so I got my results. I got a C in drama, C in history, and then an E in physics. So for me, I was like, my course needed me to get in, like you needed a minimum, was it a B? Or like you needed the strong, like the sciences needed to be the strongest like grade. So even like afterwards, I was just like, there was a part of me that was always like a bit like, oh, I don't want to tell people my grades because like it's not the best.
There's such shame attached to it, isn't
100%.
Gosh.
But then my parents were just like, we don't really care. Like you got into university,
Incredible.
like you're happy with the university you got into. Like there's no need, like my dad was just like, there's no need for you to like feel like this matters.
My mum was like
Incredible.
that too,
So
and it doesn't matter, right?
It doesn't.
Unless you decide to bring it up. No one ever asks
yeah.
what you got at GCSE, A-level, even in your degree. People don't ask.
Yeah.
But you're not told that at that age. And I can understand why. But yeah.
No, 100%. And it was just throughout uni, it was just like trying new things, getting involved with stuff. And then, I'm now at a stage where, like, I guess the biggest thing from doing, like, work placements and just, like, getting involved with different things was I just said, like, career-wise, I just want to do what I enjoy.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I've always just got to, like, it's got to be, like, whether it's, like, so I did, like, work supporting, like, young people who wanted to get into the field of STEM. They wanted to learn about it, so I do workshops with them. I did like environmental consultancy with the Environment Agency. So like I've done a few things, but the biggest lesson was just I want to do stuff that I enjoy. And I was just like, I'm not necessarily fussed on the money. I'm not necessarily fussed about like a certain outcome. But apart from, unless I enjoy it, I'm not going to, like, I know I won't do well in it if I don't enjoy it. So that's been the biggest sort of like guiding star for me. And that's always like, even when it comes to like knowing when to leave a workplace, I'm like, if I ever stop enjoying the work or the workplace feels like it's getting a bit toxic, that's when I'm just like, okay, cool, I've got to start looking because this isn't, like, I can't be here for longer than I need to be.
That is wonderful. Yeah. What a great mentality.
Thank you.
I do actually think we're, I say this sometimes to people, like, we are so privileged in this country, in this city, that you actually pretty much can do any job that you want. And many countries in the world never have that chance. Never, right? And I think, the reality is, you could turn around now and go, do you know what? I'm going to go be an engineer. And, you'd probably have to train. And, maybe go and study more, like, of course. But the reality is you probably could end up doing that. Yeah. And I think that I just love what you said so much. And it goes so much alongside, like, a mentality that I've had for my 15 years when I was waitressing. And, of course, I had hard days. Like last year, I worked 2 days a week at a restaurant in Mayfair. Shout out Cicconi's. Absolutely love that place. It was insane, don't get me wrong. Like, you didn't stop for 12 hours. It was crazy.
I went for that this week.
and I was kind of used to it, but and I can appreciate it's hard and that people complain. And I worked with a lot of people that love to complain. And I can understand it. They all worked 5 days a week, 50 plus hours. It was a very different, like, I would come in, do my 12 hours, have a day off, then go back. And I wasn't having a day off. I was going to do other work, right? But they saw it as she's got a day off, like she's part-timer. And it used to wind me up and I used to have to be like, you don't have to justify yourself to them, But one of the things I used to always encourage people, young, old, doesn't matter how old you are, is like, actually find something that at least you get some enjoyment from, right? Because life is short. Life is the longest thing that we, I think, consciously know of on this world, but I believe in an eternal life, right?
Yeah,
but we got to steward our season well. And the reality is, if your season living on earth, you don't want to be complaining every day. And if you're in a place where you're going to end up complaining, you're a human being, you are flesh, right? You are flesh, you have soul and you have a spirit. But the reality is, like, help yourself out. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're going to moan, help yourself. Like, find somewhere where you won't moan as much, right? And so I think, I just love that so much. That's so great.
Oh, thank you.
To jump on that last sentence that you said, especially when it comes to like God and that stuff as well, one thing I've always learned is that he will help you, but you have to meet him halfway. So if you're not happy, you need to forcefully try and get yourself out of that situation, and then he will take you to where you need to be. It's like
well, he looks for obedience, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So if you hear the voice of God and he says to you, like, you're gonna leave, and it doesn't make any sense to you whatsoever,
you've got to do it anyway.
You gotta follow. Do you know what I mean? You gotta be obedient.
Exactly.
And sometimes it does look messy. It doesn't make sense. It's very confusing. But the obedience is what God is looking for, right? He doesn't promise that it'll always. I mean, look, Jesus says you will have troubles. You will, right? But hold on to him. Cast your burdens onto him. And I think I love that so much because it's like, it's not easy to be obedient. It's really not. To lay your life down. Like, I love Romans 12. It's speaking to me so much lately. Like, your body is a living, holy sacrifice. Like, lay your life down to God.
That's my next book, actually.
Really?
That's my next book, actually.
Ooh, Romans.
Yeah. That's my next
Romans
book,
don't play. And my other question I have for you, if I can,
of course.
is what do you both, I suppose you can answer this.
Okay.
Like, what do you currently need? This is so funny because it's my whole connector self, but like, I just think it's important as well. Obviously you run this podcast, but like, you know, is there something that you are looking for right now, or something that you need, or an area that you'd like more support with, or just an area that you'd like more opportunity in? You know, like, is there something or someone that would be the ideal person for you to talk to and connect with?
I think now, obviously, because it used to be when I was younger, a little younger, I'd be like, okay, I have to get here, I have to get here. Now it's kind of like, I'm kind of at peace with it. Low-key, I'm kind of just letting it take me where it's supposed to take me. You know, like, opportunities are unfolding for me. Thank God for that. But I think just now, I think I want to explore myself more, you know? Because the entire time, like, from 14 onwards, it was, I have to do this, I have to do that. And then now coming out of that, like, basically, when I started uni, it's kind of like, oh, well, what do I kind of want to do with that?
Yeah.
You know? Obviously, I want to meet new people. I want to get more exposure, that type of things, because I know I have a lot to give.
What do you do at uni?
I do sport, health, and exercise science, actually.
Cool.
So anatomy, biomechanics. Aside from all the other stuff that I do like that. I want to study that, and I want to apply that to myself and other people as well.
Wow.
But I think just in general, I think I just want to grow more, because I'm kind of liking who I'm becoming. But I didn't think I'd be this person.
Yeah,
you
wow.
know? And it's kind of like a full circle moment for me as well, because when I was talking about wanting to be an artist and that stuff when I was younger, I thought when I hit like 13, I was like, okay, this is never going to happen.
Yeah,
but
wow.
I'm low-key doing what 4-year-old me wanted to do.
That is so cool.
You know? And the funny thing is, this was only 15 years ago, you know? So it was like, my life hasn't even started
You have a whole
yet.
life. Exactly.
So it's kind of, I'm excited for it.
It's
I'm excited for
amazing,
it,
you know,
yeah.
to hear someone say, you know, I like who I'm becoming, because we don't hear that. So often we hear people pick themselves apart, me included, right? And so but it's amazing, right? Because the Bible says, love God, love yourself, love others. I'm pretty sure it's in that order. I could be wrong. But it's like, actually, in order for you to understand, one, how to love others, but also how you should be loved, you actually have got to love yourself. And I'm quite anti, self-care. I'm anti what the world tries to teach us about self-care and self-love, because it can turn into this really quite like idealistic, you know, like,
Yeah.
it's all about me. It's not about you. It's never been about you. You know what I mean? It's about how you can serve, how you can help others. It's about where God leads you to, right? And I think I'm saying that as a person who it all used to be about me, right? And at the end of the day, I am flesh. And the flesh is like, pride is a real thing that we all deal with, that we all have to try and manage and, you know, give to God all the time. And so I think it's really amazing to just sit here and go, wow, like there's someone that's going, I like who I'm becoming.
Yeah, I push it for other people too.
It's
people
so
my
good.
age. Like, one thing about me, I'm a hype man. I'm a big hype man. It's like my second job at this point, because I'm like, you do what makes you happy. You do what makes you feel happy inside. Like, when you said earlier that you don't like surface level stuff, I hate it. I can't do it, because I'm like, I don't care about what you ate yesterday. I low-key don't care about. I care about the person that you are inside and who you want to become.
Yeah.
And especially when I was telling, like, when I speak to people younger than me and even older than me, it's like, well, I want to do it, but why not?
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, I can't do it. That's no.
Yeah.
Like, you can. If you really wanted to, you would.
Yeah.
You know? So I feel like...
Well, sometimes people are so scared because they haven't got the support.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And that's why it's so important to have the right people around you and an encourager, even, like, to listen to this, for people to go, wow, like, I'm encouraged, you know? Like,
Yeah.
I love what you said. No service level.
Sometimes you got to start, though, to get that support, because sometimes that support won't be there.
Yeah, you have to ask.
You have to do it first, because I told people, like, okay, I'm going to do track, I'm going to do yeah. When there was nothing available to me. I had to find it all myself. But then after I found it, I have this big support group now.
Yeah, that's cool.
So sometimes you have to.
Sometimes you have to go alone.
Exactly, you have to.
Yeah.
In most cases, the path that you walk is with you and God. It's not with everybody else that's here, anyways. You know.
Hey, look,
So
listen to your name. Your name is Joshua.
Yeah.
Think about Joshua in the Bible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Joshua and Caleb were the ones that went out and was like, the Lord is going to go with us, right? There's an amazing story in the Bible, for those that don't know, where basically they send out, they're waiting to go in the promised land. They've been in the desert for 40 years, I think at this point. And Moses sends out spies to go and find out where the promised land is. And they all come back and they're all scared apart from two. And Joshua is one of those two. And it's incredible because now I'm reading, I'm in Joshua, like I said to you before. And it's incredible because like these people even the people that don't know God, but they know Joshua and they know the God of Joshua and they talk about it like that. And it's incredible because if you think about, I mean, I just feel like I'm speaking so directly into you right now, but I think if you think about the name, the meaning of your name and what you are called to do, like why your mom would have called you Joshua. And if you go back and you trace what Joshua went and did, and sometimes he went alone, right? He went alone. Other people were like, you're mad, you're crazy. Like, but he listened to God. Even if you think about what he did around the walls of Jericho, he listened to God. He let the Lord lead him, right? And that's you. That's all you need to do, right? Is just listen to the Lord, not listen to even the influence of other people. And that impact, it changed the course of history. Joshua changed the course of history, right? So that's for you, man. I wanted to call you Jeremy.
No, that's all right.
Jeffrey.
You gotta give me a minute, guys.
I would say I guess my short answer in the interest of time would be that it's two things. So one is I've got big plans to pick up the mic of like what we want to do to better support like our community and our network. So just meeting anyone, whether that's people who can offer advice, like financial advice, whether that's people who've got creative ideas, whether that's people that can talk about like legal stuff, connecting with people in that sense is really good.
Love that.
But also I guess like what Josh was saying is like the biggest thing I've learned is that sometimes when you like, not necessarily when you like allow yourself to like go where the universe goes, but I guess like you said, like from a like faith point, like when you open yourself to like when you open yourself to receive like, I guess, insight from like God in different ways, you never know what's coming. So even like last year, the job that I'm currently in at Somerset House, I just applied for it out of a whim. I was working full time. I was just like, I've got plans to pick up the mic. I want to see how it can grow and develop. And I was like, look, I probably won't be able to do it if I continue to work full time. It's just going to be shelved. But I was also just like, it's a new opportunity. It would be like something that I'm really interested in. I'm supporting Black owned businesses. I'm a Black business owner. Yeah. Maybe they've got advice for me. Maybe I've got advice for them. I look back on it. I've been at Somerset House for over a year and it's been like a great journey. So even when people are just like, oh yeah, what's next for you? What's like career-wise, where do you want to go and things like that, I'm just like, yeah, I'm just open to seeing like what can happen, because I don't know, another job that somewhere else could open up that like I learn a lot more there. I might stay at Somerset House for another 6 months to a year and still like grow and develop there. So it's being very like, not necessarily, being open to like receiving like that advice and that wisdom and those lessons from sort of like anyone and anywhere. Can be really good. Yeah, wow, that's good. I like that. I think teachability is huge, isn't it? I mean, to be honest, that should have been my point as well for the younger generation, is being teachable. You can't do it by yourself. Stop trying. I say that to everyone all the time. I'm like, stop it. You know what I mean? Yeah. The world would love to tell you to be, I mean, we can end on that point, like the idea of like this whole independent woman narrative that is just so destructive. Like, why are we teaching women they can do it all by themselves all the time? Like, you can't. Stop trying. Men you don't need to.
Do it all by themselves.
Yeah, and that. Yeah. But then, you know, the narrative right now is, you know, this independent woman culture, and like, you don't need no man. You don't even need a man anymore. My friend says this. You don't even need a man anymore to go and have a baby. It's mad. That's the world that we live in. Mad. And don't get me wrong, I understand it's, you know, there's complex layers to that, but that's the world we live in. And if you think about what that teaches women and what that does subconsciously, we have got to be aware of what we're listening to and where we live and how that could navigate and change the decisions that we make. So yeah, absolutely love that so much for you. And I'm excited because I feel like you're just so... You're so ready. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I think God needs us to be ready. And I just really get that sense from you that you're like, I'm ready. Like, what's next? I'm ready. You know, and it's about being ready and staying ready, right? So, Yeah.
100%.
Cool.
But yeah, so we're now going to go on to the Empty of the Month section, where we talk about an organisation and individual relevant to the topic. And I think we've got a bit of two. So one would obviously be, they've previously been MCs of the Month, would be Hayley and Sterling. Again, we've shouted from them from the rooftop, so we can do the round of applause. But yeah, they do incredible work. Whether you want to like grow professionally or personally, whether you're looking for like a faith-based like content creators, they do really cool stuff.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, they have a podcast called For the Record, where they talk about their journey. So both with like dealing, so Hayley talks about dealing with the loss of her father. Sterling talks about growing up in a single parent household. They talk about how they went from being celibate to sexually active.
Amen to that.
Yeah, there's a lot of useful information and like very genuinely really like empowering stuff from their podcast. They haven't gone back to it. They have said that they've been busy, so it should be coming soon. But yeah, if you're
Hayley's featuring on a lot of podcasts.
She's doing a really lot of podcasts. Like, fingers crossed. We've been trying to get Hayley on this on the Student Guide for some time, but we're hoping
that would be so good.
2024 hopefully is the year that it comes to fruition. But yeah, I would definitely recommend, if you are interested in like getting to know them, they would be a good shout. And then last but not least would also be the Wellbeing Project. So they're a UK-based organisation that focus on improving workplace well-being and supporting individuals with leading like balanced and healthy lives. So yeah, they've got a lot of amazing work on their website. They talk about, it was like a co-created project, and it's sort of like all these different people working together to sort of do stuff. They do research, they have a think tank, they look at sort of like intergenerational trauma, ecological belonging. They've got a lot of cool resources on their website, so we definitely would recommend checking them out. But yeah, we've now come to the takeaway section. So just before we wrap things up, Natasha, it's been great speaking to you. We've spoken about a lot. If there's anything our audience can go home with, what would you like them to go home with?
Oh my gosh. What would I like them to go home with? I suppose encouragement. Right? Just try. Like, it's so bizarre because I feel like you've asked me this question in like different ways throughout, and I love it because it's like we're giving people so much to go home with. I love worksheets. You know, every time we do a worksheet, there's a workshop, there's a worksheet involved. And I think we just got to encourage people to have the grace to grow, which I think we said before. Like, allow yourself to just try. So if there's something that you've wanted to try and you've not because fear has held you back, I mean, we just, like I told you before, we just launched our on-demand platform. And one of the workshops we launched with is facing your fears. What's stopping you? Fear immobilizes us. It really holds us back. Whether it's fear of not being able to do it right, or, you know, not being able to, I suppose, do it maybe to the expectation that you put on yourself, or maybe fear of what other people might think of you, or fear of maybe not knowing enough. Like, me sitting in front of a camera and filming a workshop alone was a big thing for me, because I can sit in a room, feed off the energy in the room of the people, but doing it on in front of a camera by yourself with a mic, no one else recording, you just hit record yourself. There's a different level that you have to kind of go through. And I've had to do that recently. And then I really struggled. And I had this workshop that I think it was a workshop that I filmed called Discovering Your Purpose. So that's also what we've gone live with. And I had the voice of the accuser. So I talk a lot about God. And, you know, if you believe in God, you've got to believe in the devil, right? And so we call the devil the father of lies, the voice of the accuser. And I could hear, literally, as I was doing my podcast, I could hear, this is rubbish, doesn't make any sense, you should just stop, why are you even bothering? All of these lies. And I just sat there and was like, keep on going. And I left, and the whole day I thought, wow, that was so rubbish. I'm going to have to refilm, doesn't make any sense. I watched it back the day after, and it was one of the best workshops I've ever filmed and done in my life. Some of the stuff that I talk about, I didn't even prepare or plan to say. And, you know, all glory to God for that, because it was definitely him and not me. But it's amazing because the voice was so loud. And what I have promised myself then is, and I actually watched a webinar with Hayley, and she was speaking about doing something 100 times. Like, you cannot even say that you've tried, she was saying, until you've done it 100 times. And I had a real pep talk with myself that day, and I was like, right, that is it. From now on, you are filming once a week, every single week, just you and the camera and the mic, and you're going to allow yourself to grow, to progress, to improve. And so there's one thing I would love people to take away from this, is to allow yourself to grow, to be rubbish at the beginning. You know, you can go back on ModelMe Spotify and listen to podcasts I did in 2019. I had this rubbish little mic. We're talking 5 years ago. They didn't have mics like, they probably did, but we didn't talk about them, right? It wasn't accessible in the same way it is now. Podcasting wasn't really cool back then. But I used to just literally be in the back of conference halls. Like, I wasn't in a soundproof studio. This is very luxurious compared to 2019 days for me. And I would just sit there, get a mic, and I'd talk to somebody. And I don't want to listen and go back to those, but I haven't deleted them. And it's because I'm okay with them not being perfect and progress, you know? And I'm kind of embarrassed that I've just told everybody that in case anybody does go back and listen to. But I just think it's so important that we've got to allow ourselves a chance. You know, I've been talking on Instagram, give yourself a chance. We don't even give ourselves a chance anymore. So I think for me, it would be that, like, whatever that burning desire, that thing that you've got in your mind that fear is holding you back, just try and get a person to hold you accountable. If you need an accountability person, you can text me. If you haven't got one, send me a message on Instagram and I will hold you accountable. Just say what it is that you need, right? And we desperately need accountability more in our life. And so, yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. We've now officially come to the end. So it's been great speaking to you, Natasha.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for coming on.
I appreciate it. It was so cool. It was complex and detailed and in a full adventure, but wow, so good.
Well, thank you very much. How can people find you? Where's the best platform?
Oh, yeah. Probably Instagram. Okay. I'm on TikTok and Instagram. It's just my name, Natasha Minter, like winter, but with an M. More summary. And yeah, model_me on Instagram. TikTok is modelme_. Okay. Obviously, we've got a podcast. That's YouTube, ModelMe. That is YouTube, Spotify, Apple. And to be honest, I use both of my socials as much. And it is always me that you'll find on ModelMe. So that's probably the ways. And then we've got some really different, interesting things coming up for ModelMe. So I'm like encouraging people to just pay attention to our newsletter, because I have got so many amazing people on our newsletter and I've never really used it. And all of a sudden I've got this revelation of email marketing. And I'm like, oh yeah, it can be really useful. You tell everybody what you're doing. I just have relied on social media and word of mouth so much. And so, I'm really trying to switch gears and go more into like marketing, because I feel like I've been in heavy, hard prep for a while, which has been amazing. Don't get me wrong, but it's definitely a different side of business.
No, I completely agree. Thank you to your wonderful audience for coming back to another episode. If you like this,
guys,
like, comment, subscribe is always appreciated. If you want to make sure you don't miss the next episode, then make sure you click the notification bell at the bottom of the video. If you are looking to find out about other podcasts, you can check out the main Pick Up the Mic channel. If you click on there, you'll see the two Maces channels, Sci-Fi and Fantasy, where they discuss sci-fi and fantasy. Ooh. You'll see the Anime Senses of Anime, where we discuss anime, and the gaming one, where my co-host Josh does some videos on gaming.
Cool.
And check out those. And finally, if you want to receive some merch, check out the link on our website. We do
merch. That's your top.
Yes.
Very cool.
So it's got all the podcasts here. We will have a photo so you can like see what it looks like.
Tell them what's on the back though.
Yeah. So there's a quote on the back. I'll put a photo up about it. But the quote on the back is it says "Sig Parvis Magna," which shout out if you watch my graduation speech. You can also find that on the YouTube channel. But it's from a game. Without going into like too much detail, the quote basically means greatness from small beginnings. So it's
love that. Say it again.
Sig Parvis Magna.
Okay.
So it's
greatness from small beginnings. Wow.
So for both personally and Pick Up the Mic, I see it as a reminder that it doesn't matter that it seems that we're in our small beginnings. Yeah. Greatness is going to come from what we do. So it's like my North Star to just know that and that's why it's on the shirt. So it's a reminder that whatever we're doing, greatness is going to come from it. We just need to keep at it. Don't stop. Yeah. Keep on moving.
That literally is so connected to what I just said. Wow. Look at that. Thank you, guys. No, thank you, everyone, for watching.
Thank you. And we'll see you in the next chapter of The Student Guide. So that's bye from us here. And take care.
Bye. Bye. Oh. Why are we this?